I think the Summer Olympics in Paris might have created more social and cultural commentary than any other Olympics I remember. It began with Celine Dion. It ended with Tom Cruise doing a stunt at the closing ceremonies. Today on the show, the highs and lows of Paris 2024. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. I'm back, baby. And listen, before I get going on the show, let me just say a thank you to Rad Simon Pillay, who filled in on the show last week. I really appreciate it. Rad, you did a great job. I'm delighted to be here. I'm well rested. The only thing that I did when I was off is watch a lot of the Olympics, and the Olympic flame has been passed on. Can I just say, I don't think I've ever been as excited by an Olympics as this one. The whole thing, like the wild closing ceremony with the athletes and the celebrities who showed up and put on an incredible show. That's a little French band called Phoenix performing yesterday at the closing ceremonies. If you're Gen Z, you wouldn't understand, okay? This is millennial language. This is my people. The group chat is here. We're talking about the highs, like the many goals of Summer McIntosh and Simone Biles' comeback to Celine Dion and Tom Cruise jumping off the top of a stadium.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen.
Tom Cruise in the house. We heard rumors, Scott.
It truly is an unbelievable sight to see Tom Cruise at the top of a stadium jumping directly down. But then, of course, there are also the lows. Yes, the Canadian women's soccer team coaches and the internet's reaction to a certain boxing match. There's a lot to talk about. Mel Woods is back with us from Vancouver. Mark Strong, a.k.a. Strizzy, he's here in Toronto. And Chris Murphy is very early in Los Angeles. Chris and Mark and Mel, welcome to the show, y'all.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.
Hello.
Mel, I'm going to start with you. That whole closing ceremonies and go. What was your reaction?
I mean, it's hard to kind of top/compare with the opening ceremonies, which was so unique. And in many ways, I think the closing ceremony was a lot more conventional, if taking the same kind of just disjointed, all over the place spirit of the opening. You know, the tonal shifts of Tom Cruise and Phoenix, and that whole segment where there's a guy in gold and a bunch of Cirque du Soleil like performers lifting some rings, and that went on for like 40 minutes of that. Like, my partner kept coming into the room and being like, they're still lifting the rings. Like, they're still lifting the rings. But then, you know, you actually get like some like heartfelt moments. Like, you know, this was the first time that the women's marathon medals were given out at the closing ceremony. And to see Sifan Hassan, you know, accept her gold medal while wearing an hijab in a country that bans its own athletes from doing that was like, also after she ran the 5K and the 10K and the marathon and won medals in all of them. That's like the Olympics, baby. That's like, that's the triumph of sport. So, you know, it was all over the place, but I think had some really great highs.
Chris, what's your take on these closing ceremonies? Because the opening ceremonies were epic. This is a different game to sort of do the closing ceremonies.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to compare the excitement of the opening ceremonies, especially that it was out in the rain. We had water, we had the Seine, we had bellhops breaking and sort of doing crazy dances. You don't really get that at the closing ceremony, but that's not what it's about. It's about sort of celebrating the athletes. And I think the best parts of the closing ceremony were when we were focused on the drunk athletes celebrating, having the time of their lives, bopping to Phoenix if they were millennials. It was more about them than it was about the performance, which they deserved, right? Because for a lot of them, this is going to be their last shot, their last chance at being at the Olympics. So I think when we take the lens off of the performances, which some were fun. I love Phoenix. I am a millennial, a young one. Listomania, let's go. Others, I was sick of the rings and the little weird Gollum Gold guy. And I do think Tom Cruise, like, okay, he jumped off the top of the stadium, but Gaga did it first at the Super Bowl, so she outsold. But the athletes, focusing on the athletes, I thought that was great.
Wow. What I love is Chris being like, we are going to credit our foremothers, and Lady Gaga did it first. Mark, let me ask you about that moment. Let me ask you about that moment of we get to see Tom Cruise at the top of the stadium. He rappels all the way down. He jumps all the way down. What do you think? Should doing your own stunts be, you know, an Olympic sport?
Oh, if it is, you got to have an age limit, because I don't I don't mind if maybe if Idris wants to do it, or when you get to like Harrison Ford age and you kind of look like, when like you look like you're supposed to be the person you are, only you're 10, 15, maybe worried about geriatric looking kind of, you got to be a little careful. So Tom did a good job, but I think that should be his last jump off of anything in order to do an opening ceremony. But
Buddy,
it was okay.
If you feel that way, I've got many Mission Impossibles movies in the works for you. You're going to get real tired of it real soon. Mel, we've talked about this, but how the Olympics sort of showcase both athletic talent and celebrity and star power. Who or where has your heart been captured, would you say? Who's captured your heart when you sort of think about the Olympics and these athletes, maybe as celebrities?
It's interesting because you go in and you see the people that you're expecting. Like Simone Biles, she's going to be a star. We know that. And, she delivers. And I think she really, the narrative around Simone Biles at this Olympics, I just loved to watch this kind of, attitude of like passing the torch, the bowing down to Rebecca Andre on the podium, while also still continuing to dominate and get another move named after her. Like that's the best we can hope for. You see, Canadian people that had so much expectations of them, like Summer McIntosh, who is a teenager, like that is a child, and with the weight of expectation put on her to actually deliver the kind of excellent performance that you're expecting is just so kind of magical and exciting to see. The surprises, the men's relay team, like those are superstars here in Canada.
Yes.
And just like not really anybody expecting that to happen except for them. They expected that to happen. Yes. And it's just, I love seeing those moments paired with, and we'll get into the memes, we'll get into the internet culture of it all, but the actual, outstanding athletes on the field living up to those expectations or setting those expectations for themselves, you have to get that little glow, you start singing the little national anthem to yourself. You're like, maybe sports are good.
Maybe nationalism's fine also. You know what I mean? Like it's
only for 2 weeks every 4 years, or I guess every 2 years with the Winter Olympics. After that, book closed on nationalism. But for now, I'm still riding the high.
Can I just say that, like, what I love about the Olympics is that every Olympics, I come away learning the name of an Olympian that I was like, I don't know who that is. They've never been on my radar ever before. And now all I can do is be like, have you heard the good word about Ethan Katzberg? And I want to sort of talk about Ethan Katzberg for a moment because he was Canada's flag bearer for the closing ceremonies. And can I just play you guys a clip of Ethan Katzberg shouting out his hometown?
There were signs all over Nanaimo, just saying "Go Ethan Katzberg." It was really cool to see that support, and even in Kamloops too, the level of support I received was absolutely unbelievable. It was a huge help.
Ethan Katzberg, gold medalist in hammer throw. I've never paid attention to hammer throw. We won the double gold in hammer throw, and I'm like, we are a hammer throwing nation, which is not a sentence I would have said even a week ago. Mark, who was the star of the games for you?
There were so many to pick from. I personally, between, as we mentioned, Summer McIntosh, her incredible achievements, Andre DeGrasse coming from not being able to qualify in the certain heats that he wants to, then getting to becoming tied with
Penny Oleksiak as the most decorated Olympian.
I just find all of that was incredible. I really had an interesting gravitation to that New Zealand women's rugby team. Besides Michaela Blade, I believe her name is Blade, was it?
I'm not sure, but I believe
I'm gonna go with Blade.
Yeah.
Anyway, between her and her incredible meeting up with Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, because she had this thing where she couldn't believe that speed meets speed, and that was her. It was to see athletes actually fanning over each other was incredible. But then afterwards, it's interesting. Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce was with one of the women's rugby players, and she was teaching her how to speak patois. And then later on, they're in the bus with their gold medals singing to a soca reggae song. And it was just so interesting to see how New Zealand started to really embrace another full culture. Yeah. And it just, you saw the overlapping of cultures, just loving and appreciating each other. So I just loved everything about the New Zealand rugby team. To me, I don't know, I just kept seeing what was next with them.
Guys, you're capturing the spirit of the Olympics even in this conversation. I'm like, maybe sports are always good. Nationalism, always a big fan. I gotta say, Mark, the first time we had you on the show, we were talking about breaking, because this was the first time that breaking was in the Olympics. Breaking also became a star meme of the Olympics thanks to the Australian B-girl Ray Gunn. I see you
My
making
girl Ray Gun.
I see Mark making a
your girl.
face about Ray Gun. Look, Ray Gun's moves have been getting a lot of reaction online, maybe because she's not the best B-girl that there is, but she's out here doing her absolute best. What do you make of the way that she showed up in this competition and the reaction to it, Mark?
Well, so myself and Switch B were doing the commentating for Breaking here, and you've interviewed hundreds of people, I'm sure, and I'm sure on the spot, Elamine, you thought to yourself, "How did I get here?" Once in a while, you probably thought that.
Yes,
In
sir.
the midst
All the time.
of this dance, we both looked at each other like, "Are we allowed to just say?" Ooh, interesting. Or do we give what we're seeing? And it was so bizarre. And I was like, I don't know how you got in, who let you keep going, why you got to another round. But more importantly now, at this point, bizarrely enough, I think that it's really unfortunate this meme has diminished the purpose of what breaking was to getting into the Olympics. Because now everybody's talking about how much mockery this was for somebody like that to be an Olympian, as opposed to the incredible works of the Phil Wizards and the Danny Danes and the Amis and the Nikas who put their effort and time into it.
Yeah.
So this whole situation with Ray Gun, her profile has grown. She's got like 50,000 followers now.
Yes, sir.
Off of something as ridiculous as that performance. So
First of all, I hadn't thought of that dimension. I hadn't thought of the dimension that the idea like it becoming a meme could actually serve to diminish a sport that has its first opportunity in the Olympics. And I should say, I led with Ray Gun. I didn't lead with Phil Wizard winning a gold medal for this country in breaking.
Absolutely.
Because Ray Gun has kind of become the story. But that's kind of what happens when you become the main character for the internet. Like you become this sort of fixation point. Chris, who were the other main characters for you as you were watching this Olympics? I feel like there were so many.
Oh, there were so many. I should say that I am one of Ray Gun's followers, and I have no regrets. I will follow her to the end of the earth. But yeah, I mean, there were so many great ones. I mean, I got to shout out my personal favorite, Mr. Pommel Horse himself, Stephen Nedorosik, Clark Kent, Squinty Eye, just absolutely nailing it and taking home bronze for 2 bronzes for the men's U.S. gymnastics
We should
team.
explain that became a meme because he was closing his eyes and just kind of like maybe asleep while the rest of the gymnastics was happening. And then
he was completely asleep.
And then he woke up and did his job.
Yeah, he has got one job to do, and he slept for most of the games, and then woke up and absolutely nailed, and looked like Clark Kent turning into Superman while doing so. So we gotta love him.
Yes.
I also love Turkish gun guy. Has he killed before? Will he kill again? We don't know, but he absolutely was a big sleigh coming in silver with no protective gear for that. And then you know what? I'm gonna shout out. I'm gonna say what we're all thinking. Mr. Pole vault, and not Mondo Duplantis, who set the world record, and God bless him and very proud of him. But we got to talk about Anthony Ammirati, who's
go off. Tell people why he's famous.
Well, I think everyone should know if they don't. I'm spreading the news. His bulge was so large that it sort of knocked the bar off as he was going over, clearing the bar easily, keeping him from getting to the finals of the pole vault in the Olympics. And as a former pole vaulter, I know his pain. You know, it happens so often. You know, but yeah, it was potentially the most viral moment. Now he's getting offers from OnlyFans, so I think it'll be okay. But there are a lot of great standout moments for me, I would say.
It would also be, I think, unreasonable to talk about the Paris Olympics without talking about its, let's say, unofficial mascot.
Check me out. Hands up, let the beat go. It's Big Snoop Dogg coming back with Rico. Gold medals on the Gold Coast. USA all day. What do people say?
Gold medals on the Gold Coast. Why not, Snoop? Get your money, man. Okay, so Snoop Dogg was everywhere. We saw him trying swimming and weightlifting and breaking and running. And most of all, just being Snoop. Chris, NBC reportedly paid him $500,000 a day. What do you think? Was it worth it?
I'm going to have a hot take here. I'm going to say yes, it was worth it. If they had that money, he brought such an amazing... I do think that, I mean, thinking about the trajectory of hip hop from this, like, underground, thing that started in the Bronx to sort of like the most beloved unifying thing for, Americans and North American culture, that we have Snoop Dogg. And we should definitely mention Flavor Flav, who was not paid $500,000 a day, but also was such an amazing presence to have and such a huge support for the women's American water polo team. Yeah. And just brought incredible vibes and good energy, and they're two of the most beloved men in America now, in a way that, I'll say it, a Colin Jost to Jimmy Fallon is not going to do it. It's not going to unite the masses in the same way that seeing Snoop Doggy Dogg and Flavor Flav together, in Paris, gallivanting, having the thing that worked is that they were having a genuinely amazing time. Yeah. They felt authentically present and like they were having fun. Yeah. They were there, and if they're going to get some money for that, it's a job. Why not? It made my viewing experience better. Yeah. And if Peacock and NBC can show up $500,000, then who am I to say no? Although that is a lot of money.
Chris Murphy says, Snoop, get your money. My name is Alameen Abdul Mahmoud. Get your bag. I know, I get it. I'm willing. Let's go. My name is Alameen Abdul Mahmoud, and we are wrapping up the Paris Olympics today on Commotion. Mel Woods is here. Mark Strong is here. Chris Murphy's here. We've talked about a bunch of the highs, but also there are some lows, and this was one of them.
In red from Algeria,
Khalif taking the win as Carini abandoned the bout. She's fallen to her knees. She is very upset.
Mel, I imagine that's going to be remembered as one of the lowest points of the games, not just of these games, it's just of like many Olympic games that I remember, not just for the fight itself, but the internet's reaction to it. So Iman Khalif did go on to win the gold medal in boxing. How is all of that sitting with you now?
Yeah, I want to start by clarifying that, that's not a low moment for Khalif. That's, winning a gold medal at the Olympics, and the fact that her Olympic dream, the peak of her career, coming from where she came from, competing in women's boxing out of Algeria, to have it be co-opted by this really dangerous anti-trans misinformation machine that we see swirling on the internet is just devastating. And, I'm glad, we've seen that she's seeking legal action for some of the online harassment that she's endured over the last couple of weeks. And that is very right, because, it was frankly inspiring to see her get all the way to the gold medal and win after going through what I can only imagine, as a trans person actually on the internet every now and then, seeing just the little bits that I got for talking about this, I can only imagine what she herself was experiencing. But at the same time, it's really frustrating because it feels like we've taken 5 million steps backwards in conversations around gender, around trans folks competing in sports, and this situation has not helped that. It has taken the discourse back a million years. We have to remember that there's no actual trans women competing at these games. Like, not a single trans woman. There was one in Tokyo who got a torrent of garbage fired as well. And, the reason for that is there's a deeply exclusionary system designed to box them out. And a lot of the fact checking around Iman Khalif, around this confirmation being like, don't worry, she's not a man, she's not a trans woman, that adds its own myths and broader narratives that continue to keep trans women out of sports. And, we can talk about the complicated nature of these gender tests and the International Boxing Association, which as an organization is like not good. It's not like, the most trustworthy thing in the world, but it's just really frustrating to see this kind of level of misinformation be spread by voices we know who do this, ranging from Donald Trump to J.K. Rowling, double down on it over and over and over again. Just look at my Twitter replies whenever I have weighed in on this in the last couple of weeks, and it's just a pile of garbage. And I think it's really frustrating to know that that's going to continue. These kinds of situations get mobilized by politicians in the coming years. We saw back in February, when Danielle Smith introduced her anti-trans laws in Alberta, she cited this rugby video that was supposedly of a quote-unquote much stronger biologically male athlete dominating women, and used that as an example when justifying introducing these policies. And so this video, this situations, this boxing match from these Olympics as much as we can fact check it and debunk it and say that it was wrong the way it was picked up as a narrative, it's going to be mobilized to hurt people and stop inclusion in sports. And for an Olympics that really stressed gender inclusion in sports, really stressed the role of women in sports, I would love to see an Olympics one day that includes all women in that. And I think the discourse around this scenario shows how trans women are still on the outside looking in when it comes to competitive sports. And misinformation can still take off like this. And it's all I say is it's bad vibes. I was like, there was a good chunk of last week where I was like, I want to enjoy the breaking. I want to, cheer for Reagan. I want to, cheer for Parmesan cheese gymnastics girly or the cool shooters. And I just had to keep coming back to thinking about this.
Yeah.
And that sucks. But most of all, it sucks for Khalif, who this should be the crowning moment of her career.
2 points that you said that I want to sort of maybe reiterate, because I think it'd be useful to reiterate. One is the idea that you're right. This is not a low point for Khalif at all. This is a very much a high point. And two is the other thing, which is like, this is not a story where any trans people are actually involved. What is actually involved is just an immense amount of transphobia that has sort of taken over the narrative. And we've seen it kind of get really, really ugly. Mark, real quick, what was the low point of these games for you?
So there were disappointments, things like before we could get into the Olympics, we had DroneGate. That was one of the most
the Canada
ridiculous,
soccer DroneGate, yes.
Understandings that was going to set back an incredible movement for our women's soccer team. So that was disappointing to start. Then before we could get into before we could even get into any of the competitions, two of the greatest Jamaican female runners pulled out. Then by the time we got there, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce pulled out. And for a country that had the last maybe 3 Olympics where that was their bread, that was their competition. We're saying to ourselves, either what's happening in the camp, or unfortunately we won't see that type of speed or that type of legacy continue. But I think the one that was most hurtful for me or disappointing was just piggybacking and relating also to the equity, gender equity theme that France was supposedly supposed to be under that umbrella. You see the French sprinter Sumkamba Silla herself was banned from the opening ceremony because of her hijab. And then the unfortunate part is most unfortunate is that I don't know if people understand what it's like to accommodate yourself, accommodate what you identify with, accommodate what your religion is or what your culture is. But they found a way to accommodate her being part of the Olympics after qualifying, and deservedly so. Now they allowed her to wear a hat as opposed to a hijab, which is what to me obviously was, if we can just get you to compromise yourself, then you can be part of the gender. We'll make it equal if you could just compromise what you believe as opposed to what our vision is of equity. And so I think that was a very low point for me, because to see her on the track, knowing that she's here to represent herself, she's here to work, all the dedication, but there's one thing that's barring her is the country she's representing doesn't believe that she can identify and represent herself the way she sees herself. And that's not equity. That's your lens of equity, and that's not hers.
Yeah, I think as we sort of like look back at these Olympics, and I think like they're important for many, many reasons, I think it's also worth remembering these low points, because I think they also color the way that we should remember these Olympics. I want to look forward, though. I want to look forward to the next Olympics that we have. Chris, I don't think I've ever seen so many celebrities at the Olympics. I saw so many of them sitting, in the stands watching Simone Biles, it's really exciting. And then the Olympics are about to go to where you are right now, to the land of celebrities. We got a minute left. What is it going to be like in LA when LA hosts the next Summer Games in 2028, you think?
Well, reporting live from LA, I think it's going to be a little different. I mean, I think something that was so great about this Olympics was that it was in Paris, right? It's such a beautiful city. You have so many iconic sort of buildings, and you have the Eiffel Tower, and it married art and sport.
Yes.
LA, I don't know if it has that beauty that Paris has. I mean, the Hollywood sign is iconic, but is it the Eiffel Tower? I don't know about that.
Nope.
So I do think there's some managing of expectations that people have to do. I also think the idea that this is going to be completely public transportation ready. LA is going to be ready for people to get there without any cars. I think that sounds insane. I mean, I know we've got 4 years, but I think we're already behind on that front. So I'm excited because yes, obviously a lot of stars will be there. There will be stars just like us in the audience out the wazoo because this is Los Angeles.
Yes.
But in terms of the infrastructure and the vibe, it might be different, and I hope Karen Bass, I hope they're hot to go on working on this because time is of the essence.
They're gonna be like, oh, here's like the basketball court outside of Tom Cruise's house. It'll be nuts. I gotta leave it there. Mel Woods,
Indeed,
Chris Murphy, and Mark
come up with
Strong.
something.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. My name is
Thank
Alamin
you.
Abdul Mahmoud. This show is called Commotion. Hey, we are gonna be back tomorrow, and I will see you then.